Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all well. First of all, I'm going to apologise. I'm not supposed to be in my car. I'm supposed to be at home in my office presenting professionally. But unfortunately, sometimes life doesn't go the way it's supposed to go. I will be home soon for the back end of the interview. So I do apologise. But hey, life goes on. We move on, and the Sovereign Project always carries on. So this is now our third Money Masterclass. And as you're aware, we've done two fantastic masterclasses with Lawrence talking around Bitcoin. But as I promised everyone, the Money Masterclass wouldn't just be about Bitcoin. We're going to bring in lots of different guest speakers so everyone gets full knowledge of what's going on within the monetary system and how you can invest in the right way. And I'm going to keep bringing amazing guest speakers to you. So tonight, I'm really, really pleased to bring in Nick. So he's the founder and director of Gold Bullion Partners, where they buy and sell and supply gold and silver. Now, if you go to the Sovereign Project website, go to the homepage, go right to the bottom, you'll find Nick's website on there, Gold Bullion Partners. You can click on that link and it take you to his website, which is going to be great. Now, as we all know, within the monetary system, we should all know about what fiat currency is. It's a death trap system, okay? Fiat currency is not a store of value. And the whole reason why I've done the Money Masterclass is that I spoke to so many sovereigns at events, via the WhatsApp group and via day-to-day communications where they thought that cash was king and cash was going to save them. All right, do your own due diligence, but in my opinion, it's not. And I think that opinion is going to be backed up by all of our guest speakers that come in. Okay, so as we know, debt is increasing in America, across the Western countries, in Great Britain. And I don't know the exact figure, but I think the debt per household or per man or woman is something like £150,000 per man and per woman. This is getting scary. And it's how much longer can this fiat currency last where they can kick that can down the road before we start to see things massively changing. Now, potentially, we might not see a change and central bank digital currencies come in. We waiver our rights even more. We give our dynamics away, our fingerprint, eye scan, facial recognition, God knows what, waiving our rights, and you get yourself into a lot more trouble. As you know, at the Sovereign Project, we're trying to step out of the system to protect ourselves, not only protect our name and our property, but our money as well, our financial security. And that's why we've made the Money Masterclass so easy for you guys to come in and listen to the guest speakers we have. So what I want to do straight away is bring Nick in. He's going to be talking around lots of different stuff. He's going to talk around the history of money. It's going to talk around gold. It's going to talk around fractional reserve banking. It's going to be talking around how you can protect yourself. So I'm going to shut up now for once, and I'd love to bring Nick in. So Nick, welcome to the floor, my friend.
Thanks very much for that lovely intro, Carl. I've certainly got something to live up to now after that.
Oh, mate, you can talk just as much as I can. So
brilliant. So where did you want to start off?
Well, wherever you want to start off. So maybe introduce yourself, maybe talk around about your business and what you do, and then it's over to you how you want to go in.
Of course. So, yeah, we're physical gold bullion dealers here in London. We either supply bullion coins or bars for delivery, or alternatively, we can vault it for clients in Switzerland or in London. And that's the long and short of it. That is it. It's a very, very simple business model. There's not much to it at all. But look, I think the best place to start really would be to understand exactly what money is. And Carl, look, money is simply a tool that we use to acquire goods and services. That's it. It's a medium of exchange. It allows us to store our value until we're ready to get what we want. But if you break it down even further, all money really is a way to store your time. It represents the time and effort you've expelled throughout your lifetime earning it. And at the moment, we're currently in we have a fiat currency system, which loses value because of inflation. It has value basically because the government says it does. That's the only reason it has any value at all. And if you actually look back to it, the term fiat is derived from the Latin fieri, which basically means an arbitrary act or a government decree. And what people don't realize is fiat's designed by its very nature to steal as much of your time as it possibly can without you noticing that it's doing it. So if you look at the mainstream media at the moment, the government will tell you, if you look at the FT, they'll explicitly tell you inflation's what, 2.6%, which most of us don't even bat an eyelid at. We think, oh, okay, and 2.6 is nothing. People don't really bother complaining because they don't know exactly what's really going on. But what it really means is that your life energy, all that effort that you've kind of put into earning that money that's sat in your bank account, your savings are depleting at 2.6% every year. It's like a melting ice cube that it's just melting over time. So it's stealing your wealth as fast as you're trying to make it. So you're constantly on a hamster wheel wondering why you're not getting ahead. And the reason it does this is because they need to inflate away their debts, their wasteful spending, and they need to pull the ladder up for the average, for the common man, so they can maintain control, basically. And look, if you want to put it into perspective for the audience here, Carl, let's say you earned the same wage for 60 years. Just for a second, you never got a pay rise. Of course, everybody does. But even with a tiny fixed inflation rate of 2%, not even 2.6, of 2% over that 60 years, you'd lose 69% of your lifetime earnings over that period. And just to put it into perspective again, that's 41 years of your life that you'd be losing. And that's before we even get onto tax or the compounding effects of inflation as well, because it actually goes up 10%, 15%. The government lie about the figures, and then another 4% on top of that 10%, and another 4% on top of that 4%. So it's constantly compounding. It never goes down. And your wages will never keep up with that pace, nor will any interest that you get, a measly 4% in the bank. It's nothing. So it's a complete confiscation of your wealth. And a lot of people, I suppose, come and ask, well, how did this system originate? Where did it come from? And I suppose it depends how far you want to go back. I mean, paper money, it dates all the way back to China in the 10th century. But even then, it was still backed by something. Even then, it was still backed by various other metals. Now, the current system that we actually find ourselves in, this existing system, started in Frankfurt with a goldsmith, funnily enough, called Amschel Moses Bauer. And he opened up a coin shop and a money lending business in 1743, I think it was. And over the sign was depicted a Roman eagle with a red shield. And the relevance of this is that shop became known as the Red Shield firm, or in German, it means Rothschild. Now, when he got older, his son Mayer inherited the business. He quickly learned that lending money to governments and kings, so all the aristocracy throughout Europe, was far more profitable than loaning to private individuals. So not only were the loans bigger, easier to give, but they were secured by a nation's taxes, which would then guarantee interest because it's coming from the tax base. The government can control them with the armed forces, the police, whatever it is. It's always a guaranteed rate of return because of that tax base. So what he did is he then had 5 of his sons, trained them all in the skills of money creation and lending, and sent them out to all the major capitals of Europe. So London, Vienna, Paris, Naples, obviously Frankfurt, where he was, to establish banks with all the key European powers. And then it got to the point where, look, in the 1800s, Rothschilds, doesn't matter if it's in France, Germany, England, they were funding both sides of the Napoleonic Wars with huge loans. So much so that if you actually look at them now, I mean, they're funding wars, I mean, to this present day. It's a key part of their business model. There's even a famous quote by Nathan Rothschild, who was famously said, "Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes the laws." So they got complete domination of the European banking sector. But then obviously, then came America's turn, where Alexander Hamilton, again, he was an agent of theirs in Washington's cabinet, and he established the first bank in that country with a 20-year charter. Um, when American presidents that came in obviously realized how evil this system was, they didn't renew that charter over 20 years. They said, no, we've had enough. And a whole string of American presidents were assassinated, or at least there was an attempted assassination attempt on them throughout the next 70 years in something called the Bank Wars in the 19th century. So first of all, you had Andrew Jackson, John Tyler, Garfield, Lincoln, of course, in the Civil War. And I suppose finally you could end with the assassination of Kennedy, because he also wanted to stop this system of usury. So they were trying to take back their own nation's money supply. Now, finally, we get to the present day, 77 years later, and they finally managed to get complete control of the entire nation's banking system with passing what was called the Federal Reserve Act. So this basically gave a powerful group of bankers a complete monopoly over printing the American dollar. And the name's quite ironic, I suppose, when they say the Federal Reserve. It's neither federal and it's not a reserve either. It's a completely private corporation that prints the money. It's got nothing to do with the American government at all. But they gave it that name to sound legitimate in the public's eyes and make them think they weren't up to anything bad. So long and short of it is, for every dollar, for every pound that's printed, they are paid back in interest from the country's tax base. It's why the 16th Amendment was passed that very same year, 1913, to establish federal income tax. So when you actually look at the way that money is created, a country's tax isn't actually spent on roads or the military like people think it is. It's there for paying debt interest. That is the primary purpose of taxation, is to pay debt interest. You look at America, I mean, for 137 years of its existence, no one needed to pay any income tax. Didn't need it. There was no collective interest payment at all. And that's why when you look throughout history, every income tax that's ever introduced corresponds with the launch of a central bank. And to go back to what Carl was saying, actually, at the beginning of the conversation, our debt's now 430% of our GDP. So 4 times the size of our economy. And that's one of our largest expenditures, just servicing the debt. We're not even eating into the capital. We're just managing to service the debt and nothing else. So it's just going to continue to rise and rise and rise. There's no way we can pay it off. Yeah, it's about 150,000 for every one of us. But again, the relevance of this is it leads back to fractional reserve banking, which was established by the Federal Reserve. And basically what this is, guys, it's the ability to lend out money that you don't have. So for example, if you were to go to the bank and put £100 in, they can lend out 90 of those to somebody else. Because legally, that money in the bank are the sole owner and beneficiary of any money that you deposit in there. It's no longer yours. You have no legal right to it, whatever, and they can do with it whatever they want. If you just go through the terms and conditions of every current account that you've got at the moment, and the banks keep changing them, they're full of caveats that say, we have complete legal title of this money. You've only got a right to it. So again, looking at the bigger picture, this is a system of usury. You've heard of it in the Bible. It allows them to steal, it enables banks to steal the wealth of the middle classes of any particular nation and make the gap between the rich, all of those with assets, and the poor much, much wider. That's the sole purpose of it, because then eventually they can control everybody. They can put you on universal basic income. Everyone's going to be begging the government for their handouts. Of course, you'll sacrifice your freedom for government control. They'll say, well, look, if we give you a CBDC, this is going to be your carbon limit. This is your social security score. You can't put naughty things on Twitter or YouTube, because otherwise we're going to withdraw your universal basic income. And this is the aim. It's a managed collapse. And this is what usury does. It's done it time and time again throughout history. So leaving money in the bank really is economic suicide. Whatever you do with it, just get it out the bank, because it's not even there. Every time the banks suddenly decide that they want to print money, they're stealing from your future, basically. That's the way you want to see it. And that's why you'll notice, I mean, particularly over the lockdowns, the scandemic, everyone was encouraged to go out and get huge mortgages with a 0.5% interest. You've got huge college loans now, anyone wanting to go to university. That's why no one can afford anything now, because of easy money in the system, easy credit. You can't get anything, well, for most people anyway, without being in a huge amount of debt, which is how they control governments and how they control you. And I suppose what's really nefarious about that as well is they know exactly where to hit us, where it hurts. So they get interest on someone's lifetime of work. And if that person can't repay it 20 years down the line, they get to repossess the property. Or they don't get to go to uni and compete for jobs because they can't afford a tuition loan. They realize real estate can't go anywhere. And that's why the banks love issuing loans. It's because, well, they can make you homeless. And they think that you'll do whatever you can to make that payment, because for all of us, it's that one essential human right that we want, that everyone strives for, which is a safe abode. So that's why they target it. Property is illiquid. They can control you very easily with it. And most people that come through our education system and have done for, 100 years now, it makes out that inflation, this inflationary system that we're living in, is inevitable. It has to happen for a healthy, functioning economy. But economists at school and university, they're just giving a sponsored curriculum, if you like, designed to build millions of the workforce that are going to work in the present financial system that aren't going to question the basic principles of economic philosophy, and they promote this form of Keynesian economics. You might have heard that word bounded around. And if anyone wants to look at that guy, he was a really, really dark, disgusting character, but I won't even go down that rabbit hole now. But that's why it's so important to actually start looking at the meaning of money, the philosophy behind it, and common law, which obviously so many of you adhere to, because that's what's going to be best for humanity in the long term. And that comes down to whether it should be grounded, whether money should be grounded in natural law or something called positive law, as it will clarify basically the foundations and the principles that we all want to create for the new economic system that's going to be built, and ultimately how we want our society to function, really. And just in case anybody doesn't know, obviously you all know what common law is, but natural law states that rights are given to us by nature and by reason, whereas positive or man-made law is created and enforced by the government. So look, if money is seen as a product of natural law, it's considered an inherent aspect of human integrity, arising naturally from the need to facilitate trade, to measure value, and to store wealth, basically, to protect your savings. And it suggests that money's got an intrinsic value. It's actually worth something, and that its use and function are universal for everybody. They're timeless. They reflect our basic human behavior. Whereas on the other hand, positive law implies that money's just an artificial construct. It's entirely manufactured and manipulated by governments and the elites, the corporations. Whoever's in charge, they get to decide what the money is for everybody else. And money's value and function are nothing more than arbitrary legal or social agreements that they thrust upon you, and you have no choice in it. There's no consent. And it's that perspective, the way that they view it, that allows for innovations like fiat currency, because it's got no intrinsic value at all. It's just backed by the authority of the state and by force, rather than it actually having any physical commodity, if you like. And what's really interesting as well, guys, is the banks have even come to this conclusion as well. This is a man-made experiment. It's finished, and we need something tangible. So if you look at what the banks have been doing ever since COVID, really, they have been stockpiling huge amounts of physical gold, whether it's China, Japan, India, Iran, Russia, more so than we've ever seen in human history, because they know the game's up. They know this debt trap, it's just a fugazi. There's nothing there. They need something physical, because when the system resets and the bubble implodes, we get a 1929 style depression, and those holding the real money, the tangible money, they'll be the ones that dictate the new economic system that we've got coming up. And I think this this is where we come particularly into common law as well, because all of common law, early common law, was developed by considering this natural law, but through the lens of a kind of a Christian morality. So it's just a way to provide practical and just rulings for people, rather than being extorted. And that's how our monetary system should be built. So money's not always been like this. It's only come into effect in the 1700s, 1800s. It wasn't always like this. And throughout thousands of years of history, it's almost been on an evolutionary path, but it's always been connected to a physical asset, whether it was feathers, rocks, shells, copper, but eventually society settled on gold. Whatever it was always physical. Now, money has to have certain attributes. It has to be portable, it has to be divisible, it has to be durable, and it has to be fungible. So if you want to take a stupid example, guys, that bananas as an example would obviously be a terrible form of currency as they rot. They're not very durable. A cow, that would be a terrible form of currency because it's not divisible. It's not what they call fungible. A fillet steak is worth a lot more than the rump. And over time, that's why gold became the best means of exchange throughout the world. But gold's it's also a unit of account as well. So someone would say, look, how much is that house? Okay, it's 20 gold bars. Or how much is a year's worth of food? Okay, that's 1 gold bar. Everything was measured in grams of gold. But as we've seen, just from that little history lesson, I suppose, from the early 19th century, the fiat currencies became our unit of account. So 1 ounce of gold was then worth $20. And that was the case for about 100 years. But that meant you had all the currency in the world divided by the amount of gold that you actually have. But then the problem that you've now got is that gold's too slow. It had to be sped up with the number of transactions that were taking place in the modern world. I could order a product in America from, say, Carl and in England, but how do I pay for it as I can't deliver the gold? It would just take far too long. So what we did is we developed, I won't go into too much detail, but like a ledger system where the gold goes into a bank and the bank put it on a ledger. And instead of them delivering it, they take 1 ounce of gold off my ledger and then they add it onto Carl's ledger. So in order to get the settlement to speed up, we have a ledger where fiat currency operates as a debt instrument. That gold's not moving, it's just an IOU. So they take that off mine, put that on mine, and then at the end of every month or every year, they deliver the difference. So it's representative. This is the thing, it's representative of the gold held, but it's just essentially an IOU. It's an IOU system, doesn't exist. So the problem that we then had was, well, who's got control of this ledger? Are they ever going to give me the gold at the end of every month when we come to do our settlement? Have they even got that gold? No one's audited. We don't know. So, I mean, do they even have as much as they purport to have? We've seen that with Donald Trump and Musk at the moment. They're talking about auditing the Fort Knox. And it's been known in the gold industry that the Americans do not have that gold there because they've lent it out so many times over to other countries. So going back to the relevance of this is, again, going back to our best friend, the Federal Reserve, they basically, just like with the fiat system we're in at the moment, they started printing too many of these gold debt instruments that they didn't have enough gold for, hadn't got enough gold in their vault. And this got them into a huge amount of difficulty in about 1933. They owed far too much gold to far too many people and too many other countries. So what did they do? Roosevelt, FDR, he introduced something called the Emergency Banking Act. And that's where they declared a bank holiday, shut down the banks for a whole 4 days and stopped people taking their money out. They just said, no, you're not having it. And then they signed an executive order, it was 6102, that made it illegal for the public to own gold and get it out the bank. And they said, well, don't worry though, we'll pay you $20 an ounce for it. So a lot of people just handed their gold in and they thought, oh, look, I'm getting $20. It's a good price. They couldn't redeem it for any gold. They only got $20 an ounce. And then they turned around to everyone and they said, by the way, we're actually going to revalue it now at $35 an ounce, which meant that everybody had to give up their gold. They lost 20%, they lost 70% of their purchasing power overnight. So they were left with a debt instrument, really, that was no longer backed by anything. And that situation continued for decades, so throughout the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, until a lot of countries started waking up and saying, look, I can see exactly what's going on with these paper contracts, these paper gold contracts. We don't trust them. We actually want to take delivery of all of our gold back. And the first people to do it were the French. And they sent over warships all the way over the Atlantic to go and pick it up. And then it was President Nixon who turned around in 1971 and he said, no, you're not having the gold. Tough luck. We're defaulting on our obligations. And that's when the dollar lost its pegging to the gold standard. And that also meant that every other currency in the world was unpegged from gold as well, as it was under Bretton Woods in 1944, where it was established that every currency would be pegged to the dollar, which was pegged to gold. But the US, for all those decades, they were completely lying about what was there. And this was the first time in humanity that the world had seen a currency not backed by a commodity. And that's how we ended up in the situation where we are today. Because that money in the bank, it's not yours. You don't own it. Legally, it belongs to the bank. And if they decide that they want to shut their doors, you've got no recourse at all. People think they're covered for that 85,000 deposit protection limit. That's purely there to inspire confidence. That's it. If the government turned around and said, no, we're reducing it to 30, there'd be a mass exodus out the bank. And it would appear that the emperor had no clothes. I mean, that house of cards would come collapsing down immediately. But that's why the government say, look, you're guaranteed for 85,000. Do not worry, because it's in their best interest to give you that confidence so they can keep it in the system and they can carry on inflating it away. There isn't even enough money in the current deposit protection limit to cover one small regional building society going under, let alone the systemic risk that we're currently seeing in the bank. The government are carrying out SIMEX tests, or they did at the end of last year, where they're testing the capital adequacy ratios of the banks. It appears some of them didn't meet them, but they won't tell us which ones they are. We've got no idea. And now you just try going down to the bank, guys, and getting money out. You try getting £10,000 in cash out the bank, you're going to get the Spanish Inquisition. They will not let you have it, and they'll create holy hell. Why do you want it? What are you buying it for? Provide me with an invoice. They get really, really funny about doing it. And you've just got to ask yourself, why? Why has this become the case? Because ultimately, they've lent out so much of it. It's no longer 90% of it they've lent out and 10% of it they keep. It's 99% of it that they lend out and 1% of it that they keep. And they rely on everybody just not going down all at the same time and withdrawing their cash from the bank, because, of course, you'd end up with a Northern Rock style situation where you've got queues of people waiting outside of every bank trying to get their 250 quid cash out at a time. And this reminds me of like a famous quote from Henry Ford. I mean, he said years and years ago that if the people of a nation actually understand how the banking system works and how monetary systems work, there would be a revolution tomorrow morning. The whole house of cards would come collapsing down. And this is what we find ourselves in at the moment. And this is why we're encouraging everybody, get some physical gold. Don't rely on the banking system, because best case scenario, it loses place to inflation. Worst case scenario, the bank collapses, you can't get it out. And it's only back in 2008 that we saw that happen. And people think that's a distant memory. It's not. There's so much more cheap money flushing around the system at the moment. You leave your funds there for 5 years even. And if you hadn't taken any action, you hadn't protected it in a physical commodity like gold, it's going to be worth less than half. You put 10 grand in there, 5 years time, it'll probably be worth about 4.5 grand as inflation starts to compound. So just to be upfront with everybody, no one's buying gold to become a millionaire overnight. They're not looking to do it to get rich quick. It's purely for safety, security, and wealth preservation, protecting what you're lucky enough to have, and protecting for your retirement. because of course the pension funds, they work in exactly the same way as well. They're rehypothecating and lending everybody's money out to chase yield because they've constantly got to keep paying out for a retiring and elderly population. There's going to come to a point when there aren't enough people in the middle, younger generations coming up, to pay the taxes, to support the people, to have a state pension. It's mathematically impossible. And that's why they keep kicking the retirement age back. So whether you're buying gold in your pension, which is what we can help you with as well, which is quite a rarity in this day and age, because most pension funds don't want to offer that, because of course they can't make any money out of it, short of sitting out of the vault under armed guard. There's no way they can cash in and make their fees. Or alternatively, you've just got 10 grand there and you want to take delivery of some gold sovereigns, bury them underneath your floorboards or put them in the attic or whatever it might be. At least you've got something real that no one can take away from you. And why I say in the UK is it's so relevant to us is because if you buy UK legal tender bullion coins, they are completely exempt from capital gains tax because there's a caveat of British law, which means you cannot tax the flow of currency. So as such, because it's got the monarch's head on it, it's got a face value, you can't tax it. There's no capital gains tax to pay, but that also means it's a chattel. It's private. Nobody knows you've got it if you've taken delivery of it. And of course, privacy in this day and age is becoming so much of a rarity, particularly with the implementation of CBDCs. Again, that's another topic I could probably chat to you for hours about, given what we're seeing at the moment. But we submitted a freedom of information request to the government. It turns out they've just spent 60 million on the implementation on particular AI chips that will allow them to introduce biometric scanning, CBDCs, you name it. It really is terrifying what they've got coming. So because it's out the system, it's analog, it's manual, you can take control over it. They can't touch it. And if enough people do that and take their wealth out the system, they stop feeding it, only then will you become sovereign, really. Sorry for the pun and the cliche, but yeah, buy sovereigns to become sovereign. Sovereigns, Britannias. If you buy gold bars, yes, great. You've still got money. It's out the system, but you've got to pay capital gains tax on them when you come to sell them. That's why 99% of people in the UK are just buying coins hand over fist. Whereas, look, you leave your money in the bank, well, you get 4 or 5% of it, but the government are going to charge you income tax on that as well to add insult to injury. So yeah, I think that about sums it up, guys. For the time being, I'd happily open up the floor to any questions that anybody's got. Yeah, feel free.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. I don't think Carl is back yet, so I'll take over. Anybody who would like to ask a question, please raise your hand.
I'm back in the room.
Ah,
I just got to put my speaker on. There we go. You should be able to hear me.
We hear you.
Yeah, good. No, I thought Nick was going to go on for a little bit longer, so I was nearly home. But no, Nick, that is great. What I'm going to say straight away is I'd love to get Nick back on because this guy's got full of knowledge and it's just oozing out of him. So we will get him back on at a later stage to talk more about gold, more about what's going on in that industry. But everything that Nick was saying there, I absolutely loved it. I love the detail. I know there's a lot of men and women in this group right now that love the detail as well. And the best thing is it's recorded because I'm taking mental notes in my head rather than being at home and writing it down. But some of the stuff you said in there is super interesting. And what I like to do as well is when I go out with a lot of my friends that are, should we say, not awake yet, I do little mic drop moments. And some of the stuff that Nick's talked about tonight, like servicing the debt, you can't go to the bank and take out 20 grand. They ask you a million questions. Why? Mic drop moment, and you tell them why. And all of a sudden they look at you weirdly like, how does he know that? So yeah, take the information, use the information, do your own due diligence. And yeah, I think it's a good idea now that we open up the floor for questions. I've got a million questions, but I'll let everyone else go first.
I've got a couple of questions. One is from Leander. Can they make the value of gold lower?
I mean, yeah, the price of gold can always go lower. It's quite a concentrated market and it is manipulated and they can try and smash the price of it down. Absolutely. But there's only a certain amount of time they can carry on doing that until people actually require physical delivery of the product. And then, of course, they have to allow the price to carry on going back up again. So it is heavily manipulated to an extent. It should already be worth a hell of a lot more than it is at the moment if it wasn't, in my opinion, for manipulation. And there's a huge argument. There's another rabbit hole you can go down, whether the LBMA actually have all the gold that they say they have. You look at the ETFs, for example, so exchange traded funds. These are paper contracts that track the gold price, but they make about 100 paper contracts for every 1 ounce of gold that they own. So they're leveraging it out. And if the people demanded, look, I want to take delivery of my gold, well, again, it comes collapsing down, and that ETF isn't worth the paper it's written on. So yes, they can manipulate it, but if everybody takes physical out the system, there's only so long they can carry on doing that. It's also really prevalent in the silver market. There is huge manipulation in there as well. After the 2008 crash. So basically, Bear Stearns, they had all the silver contracts, all the paper silver contracts. Market hit, they went under. And basically JP Morgan and Scotiabank took over the majority of those contracts. So silver's even more manipulated than gold is. And they are keeping the price of silver so artificially low and smashing it down because, of course, they need it for the Internet of Things. AI technology requires a huge amount of silver. Weapons, missiles, huge amount of silver that goes into those. And of course, you can see prolific war is funded by this system as well. So it's in their interest to keep the silver price down because, of course, when silver's blown up, you can't retrieve it, you can't recycle it, it's gone. And it goes into every form of modern missile, satellite, you name it. Solar panels as well. Obviously, the green agenda requires a huge amount of silver too. So they can't push through this wanton kind of war and green agenda without keeping the silver price in a particular place. So yes, gold is manipulated to an extent, but silver's the real one that's getting it hard.
So it's still safer to be buying our sovereigns, Britannias, and stashing them than having money in the bank that they can stop at any time.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
Drip feed it out, 500 quid here, whatever, whenever you've got any cash, laugh out loud. And even there, so you can't have a sovereign that's going to be worth absolutely nothing at any time in the future. It might be worth less.
Yep.
Because it's up at the minute, isn't it? And gold's up.
It is, yeah. We're at a high, and it's like it goes up, it comes down. It's 2 steps forward, 1 back. But if you hold it for the long term, it's only going really in one direction. And that's not to say, look, over a 5-year period, it could plateau, it could dip, it could do nothing. But you're never going to lose it. What is guaranteed is that money in the bank is going to go to nothing.
Yeah,
that's inevitable. There is no end as to how much they can print. Look, put it this way: if there's, say, 1 Mona Lisa, for example, of course it's worth 50 million quid. If they made 1 million Mona Lisas overnight, the value of it would go through the floor. And that's the way you want to see cash, money in the bank. It doesn't exist. They can make it out of thin air. And the reason they do it is to keep us all on the hamster wheel, on the debt trap, paying them interest. Ultimately, they never want you to pay debt off, by the way. They want you eternally on that hamster wheel. And that's why they keep wanting people to extend their mortgages, remortgage their house, go out another 10 years. Because even if they're getting 1 or 2% off it, they've still got you trapped. They can still jack up interest rates and they can still take your home off you overnight. It's all about control. And that's what a fiat system that's based off usury does. So yeah, 100%, just put it into physical gold. Not everything, you still need a little bit of liquidity to live, but any money you don't plan on using for the foreseeable years, that's what you want to be taking off and putting into gold.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leander. We've got a question from Lorna. She asked, if someone is self-employed and offering a payment option of gold, can their clients deposit an amount in a bullion account, which could then be physically delivered to the self-employed man or woman?
So are you talking about buying it through your own business, would that be?
Lorna, we can't hear you. You are
Sorry,
speaking, but we can't hear you. I'm just going to pin Nick. Yeah, that's better, and I'll find Lorna.
That was weird. Sorry, phone just fell. right? So yeah, basically it's about getting paid in the form of gold or silver, but without the client having to, I have clients in other countries, let's say. So if I were to offer them an option of paying me in gold or silver rather than in fiat, where, instead of them depositing an amount in a bank account for me, could they not deposit it in a bullion account? Like, do bullion dealers do that kind of thing, that you'd have an account for one person? And
no, you wouldn't be able to do it, Lorna, because it would raise questions of money laundering and accepting then gold from third parties. So the government have come down on that. We couldn't accept money from a third party for gold for you. So the way that you do it is you just get them to directly send you the gold themselves. They take that money, go to the local dealer, wherever they are, ship it across to you. But because they wouldn't be able to use us as a third party to do that, because the government would consider it money laundering, and you have to pass a lot of aggressive AML policies, obviously, to be in the industry. So yeah, it's a shame. I'm sure there would be a lot of demand for that, or I do, but yeah, the government would not allow you.
It's just because I'm, working across borders kind of thing, so where I live and where I work, or who I work for, are in two different countries in Europe.
Yeah.
So yeah, but one government tax office doesn't know about the other one's activities. I thought maybe there might be a loophole there somewhere, but
yeah.
No.
I suppose it would depend as well on what country you're doing it, whether a broker was willing to do that as an intermediary. I mean, a lot of countries don't have joint tax treaties, etc. But no.
But could they then, let's say, could they then make their own account with the bullion dealer in this country, so that then they can just get mine is the delivery address, so to speak?
No, it would have to go to the delivery address that the money had come from as well. So they're getting really hot on that. When a client buys gold from us, we have to send, when they come to sell it back, you've got a buyback guarantee, sell it whenever you want. But when they come to sell it back, we have to send it back to the bank account that purchased in the first place. And if that bank account's still not there, we have to get them to send us proof of a bank account in their full name. It can't be a third party's name. It can't be their kid's name or whatever it is. It has to be their name.
Yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying. If they opened an account, a gold bullion account in this country with their own name, their own details, and then just had mine as the delivery address for their own account.
No, you wouldn't be able to do it. We could only deliver to them, and then they'd have to deliver it to you. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorna. Frenchie, Gary, are you hiding from me? Okay, so he's not there. So we'll move on to Manjit. She's got her hand up. Oh, she's just gone. Where have you gone, Manjit? Let me find you. Okay, so we ask her to unmute and pin her.
Hi, Nick. I saw somewhere, I saw a video which said that if you buy the coins, anything with the crown head belongs to the crown. So if there was a time when they wanted to take all the gold from people, that would not be yours, and they have a right to take it. Is that true?
Well, if that were, true, and there's an argument to say that it is, but I don't believe it is if you look at our constitutional monarchy and everything else. But that would mean that all cash in the bank, essentially, because that had the Queen's or the King's head on it now, that would also be confiscated. So we'd be in such a nihilistic situation where they'd stolen absolutely everything from us. It's not going to matter because you're going to be enslaved anyway, and you're going to have to fight back in some way or another. And the only way you can do that is by trading gold with everybody else. So exactly what we saw in Weimar Germany and Zimbabwe, Venezuela. You end up with an inflationary crash. The government want the gold, but everybody exchanges it between themselves. No, even if they did come after your gold, you could just hide it. They can't send the gold Gestapo around to your house and say, listen, cough up, give it to me. As you'll say, well, I don't know where it is, where it's gone. And there's no way of them really finding out where you put it. They've tried to do it in the past. It became completely unenforceable. And eventually the law was repealed. But no, I think that's the last of your worries, because that means that the whole thing is burning down anyway, and there's probably not much point in having anything. None of us have any property rights. None of us have anything. There's a complete anarchy.
So you still think coins are better than bars?
Every time, purely because of the tax status. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you buy gold, they have a record of what you've bought, don't they? I mean,
Well,
wherever
they do.
you buy it.
They do. They could say, listen, I can see that you've sent some money to a gold company, but if you've taken delivery of it, you could have lost it in the proverbial fishing accident for all they know. Well, sorry,
Well,
it's been stolen. I don't know where it's gone.
I've bought some on my private trust name, and they sent it on the private trust. I don't know how that works.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people buy through trusts, buy through corporations as well. You're legally allowed to do that, so you can hedge your balance sheet. A lot of people will have power of attorney over others, like their elderly parents. They can also buy gold, so you're not just restricted to being an individual to do it. But yeah, that gives you an extra level of protection as well. I know that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got Jodi. Jodi asked, how do we get the gold out of my pension?
So look, most conventional pension providers won't allow you to do it. They don't see any interest in it because it's in a fully allocated, fully segregated vault. They can't do anything with it. So we work with some SIP providers that will allow you to do it. And you give up one of them a call. They take you through the process. And then once you've got an account set up, they'd request money from your existing pension, whether that's a Royal London, a Hargreaves, Lansdowne, and Aviva. It all goes across on a payment system called Origo to your new SIP provider. They would then send us the money, and we put it into gold bars for you in the pension, because you can't put coins in your pension, you can only put bars in it. And of course, it has to be fully allocated, fully segregated in your own independent vault in your name alone. So you can't move it until, of course, you come to retire. But yes, a lot of people are just completely unaware that you can actually now put gold within your pension. They've got no idea. Most people don't even know what's in their pension. It's kind of 60% equities, 40% bonds. They haven't got a clue what's in it. But that's also worth looking at, because given this inflationary melt up that we're going to be having, you're going to see a very, very volatile ride in the stock market. I mean, look, we've seen it already in the last week or so. Huge crashes in people's stocks. And of course, when you see a big 1929 style crash and meltdown, it takes decades for people to get their money back. It never goes back up to the level that it was. And that's no good if you're 55, 60, you're planning on retiring relatively soon. Well, you don't have that luxury. You just got to carry on working and working and working. And obviously that's what gold will protect in the long term. I mean, the last kind of 20 years, it's outperformed most assets that there are, equities, bonds, obviously bar certain cryptocurrencies. But most conventional assets, it's head and shoulders above them.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for answering that.
Okay, I've got Simon. So it's a simple question. Hopefully you will know the answer, but many don't. Has anyone estimated the proportion of gold that remains unmined?
No one knows. There are some rough estimates. I can tell you there's 208,000 tons above, which would that would fill about 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So not much at all. There is a very, very finite amount. And look, when 50% of all gold consumed that's coming out the ground is going into making jewelry. I mean, India's population is growing at the fastest rate in the world. They've got a massive burgeoning middle class as everyone starts to outsource to India. Their consumption of gold just for jewelry and for religious purposes, Diwali, weddings and everything else is going through the roof. So that's going to outstrip a hell of a lot of the demand of the available resources that are left in the ground. And we're getting to a point where they actually can't get them out the ground at these prices and tap into those really hard to get reserves. You'll hear some people say, oh gosh, there's a massive gold reserve in Rwanda or Nigeria or what have you. It's all rubbish. It's just a corrupt government coming out and trying to give the economy a bit of a boost by attracting a bit of investment. But if they were there, they'd have been tapped already, and they're not. I mean, there's a lot of gold in the ocean that they simply can't get either. But at the current prices, they're finding it very hard to find good seams of gold that can be mined efficiently.
Yeah, the reason I was asking was to try and get an idea of scarcity. I think gold price is quite high now, so the viability of doing more mining is increasing all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I wondered what perhaps is going to be the asymptotic price of gold as they start mining more and more gold, and perhaps even turn into the sea. I don't know. There's no good technology for extracting gold from the sea, but perhaps the vast majority of it is dissolved in the sea.
I mean, there is, and they think that there is just no way of getting that out.
Yeah.
But at current mining rates, I think the figure was, I think it's 3,000. Yeah, 3,500 tons is coming out a year.
Right.
So even with all the accessible gold that they have got left underground, they think that in 15 years it's all going to be used up.
Yeah.
So I couldn't say there's exactly this many tons underneath the ground that haven't been mined, but that is a rough estimate. 3,000, 3,500 coming out every year. With the current reserves that we know of, it's going to be 15 years and it's all gone.
So as a percentage of the current available supply that has already been mined, how much of that comes out every year? Is it 1 or 2%?
Oh, yeah. Depending, it actually rises with population growth, which is really interesting. It shows that it really is nature's metal. Because it can go up to just over 2% every year. And that coincides with the population change that we've been seeing. So as the population goes up, so does the gold. It really, I suppose, is well and truly God's metal, nature's metal. It goes up with the natural growth of the human population. That's, of course, if they don't try and have us all killed off at some point, which seems to be the plan.
That won't affect most of us, because I'm looking at population forecasts, and the population's going to start falling after 2050.
Yeah.
And I thought, when that happens, then resources will become actually lower cost, because there's fewer of us around to share it amongst. So just give me an idea, and I'm happy with your answer that you give me. That's great.
I mean, even then, I mean, it's still going to run out 10 years before they see that population decline. Yes, they're doing everything they possibly can to cause that population to go down through various different methods, but it's you'd still run out of it before that took any effect, I think.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Carl, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. So Nicholas, then you got 15 years to make your money then before it runs out, right?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Good luck.
I don't know where I'll be living.
Yeah. Oh dear. So my couple of questions. So I've got gold in my possession. So does gold devalue in any way, shape or form if I keep it in my own possession? First question.
What, as opposed to keeping it in a vault, you mean?
Correct, yes.
No, not at all. As long as you're not throwing it around. And look, if you've got gold bars, 24 karat, of course, they're really soft, so they're quite easy to damage. Now, it's not really going to make much difference unless, of course, you're chopping pieces off it with a pair of pliers. Oh, no. It doesn't matter whether you've got it in your possession or it's in the vault with us. No, none at all. No difference to its value.
The other thing as well is if men and women start trading peer-to-peer with gold coins or whatever it may be, you know, what's stopping someone getting a pen, covering it in gold, and then me selling it to you, I knowing that that's not true gold because there's a pen in there, which makes it look bigger than what it is. You know, for that example, is there anything that's put in place where we can go and get the gold checked to make sure it's real before we then exchange?
Absolutely. With modern techniques, it's pretty easy to spot fake gold immediately.
Okay.
I mean, it just doesn't pass the litmus test.
Right.
You scan it with a gun, and it's easy to see. And if anything was, and look, don't get me wrong, in India there is a lot of fake gold.
Yeah.
But in the UK, it's so easy to spot. It's very easy. I mean, everything's testable when it comes into the vault. We all weigh it out. It's all done under camera. When it leaves, it goes through the same process again. So we check it at both ends of the cycle. So if any fake gold ever did come through, it's just going to be found straight away.
Okay, cool. And kind of last question there. We all know what's going on with BRICS and China and Russia and various others buying loads of gold. So let's go a little bit mad here and get a little bit excited. Where do you think the gold price is going to go over the next sort of 1, 3, 5, 10 years?
Oh, yeah. I think this is so reminiscent of the 1970s. It's the last time we saw this level of inflation, this level of money printing, war, everything else. We came off the gold standard. Back then, the gold price went up 1,000% in 9 years. The silver price went up 2,600%. I almost sound embarrassed to say that, but at one point, I mean, the Hunt brothers cornered the market. It went up to 2,600%, but then it came back down again. I genuinely believe that over the next 10 years, it's probably going to follow something similar. So even if it only does half of what it does back then, and there's a hell of a lot more fiat currency in this system than there was then.
Yeah.
Even if it only does half of what it did back then, it goes up 500% in 6, 7, 8, 10 years. What other asset is going to give you that kind of growth? Yes, you can say Bitcoin. There are some cryptos out there, but there is such a huge amount of risk with it. And I used to be a big Bitcoin bug as well at one point, but then you start scratching the surface and listening to people like Whitney Webb and then realizing the CIA's influence in it and how the fact it's just not private in the slightest. That's really what started to put me off it. And then, of course, you've got the likes of BlackRock and Larry Fink and everybody else trying to really monetize it and leverage it. So, yeah, the gold price went up 1,000% in the 1970s. Look, if we don't end up with an inflationary crash, which I think is all but impossible, but if we end up with a deflationary crash and they try and increase interest rates to combat inflation, well, in 2008, we saw a short, sharp shock. The gold price went up 300% in about 4.5 years. So either way, Carl, we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. Inflationary melt up or deflationary crash, both great for gold, just not for everything else. So it's a matter of, is it going to go up to a higher degree, but over a longer term time period? Or is it going to triple, quadruple in a short period of time? Look, doing a bit of fag packet maths, if you were to do a reset at the gold price, maybe even go back to a gold standard, you could see it doing a 4 or 5x quite quickly. I mean, in Kazan at the end of last year, China, Russia, BRICS nations, Saudi are getting involved as well. I was over in Switzerland at the end of last year, talking with one of the mints. There was a Saudi guy out there buying like tons and tons and tons of it, all on the sly. A lot of coins as well, because obviously his values his privacy. And they think that Saudi Arabia are going to join in with this as well. Reset their currency, get rid of the dollar's hegemony over the world, and go back to their own gold standard. The only issue is at the moment they don't have enough gold for the amount, the population that they have, the size of the population. In China, 50-60% of the people are keeping more gold than they have actual cash. For them, it's just a normal thing. It's like saving. It's a physical bank account. Over here in the UK, less than 0.4% of the population have got gold.
Wow, that's a great point. That was actually one of my questions. If you knew that type of answer, so yeah, thank you for answering that.
And traditionally, actually, Carl, it used to be 2.5% of all investable assets in the UK were in gold. So a lot of people are saying, even if we just go back to the historic mean, it should already be worth 4 or 5 times more than it is at the moment. Forget all this cheap money they're just flooding into the system. And I'm not just going to sit here and say, oh, it's going up to this, it's going up to that. This is just about protecting what you're lucky enough to have, keeping it private in your control and making sure you're not losing it. But when it does go and you end up with these financial collapses and resets, well, that's what happens to the price of gold. It always goes up, and dramatically.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you for answering my questions. I'll pass you on to the next on the list.
Thank you. We've got Gary or Frenchie. Go ahead.
If I am muted.
You are?
I am. Oh, thank you. Yeah, sorry, you've been talking about gold, but there are other derivatives like silver, copper, and platinum. Obviously, the market's depicting everything revolves around gold, but what's the effect on the other materials?
Silver's a good one there. Yeah, it's a byproduct of all those other ones that you mentioned. So when you end up with an economic downtrend and they stop mining for copper and lead and tin and everything else, there's no silver coming out the ground as well, because there are very few silver mines actually left in the world, pure silver mines, mostly in South America. So if those metals aren't being extracted as well, nor is the silver, and that's why you could see a boost to the silver price even when in an economic downturn. because they can't get any more of it out of the ground. Yes, it's used for industry, but there's only a finite amount of it. Copper, there's loads, absolutely tons of it. Platinum, again, used for industrial uses, but slightly more illiquid than silver and gold. It's not something most people are investing in. And yeah, the platinum's had a really good ride of it as well. The only issue you have, if you take physical platinum, for example, you're paying VAT on it in the UK too. Gold's completely exempt. And that means it's illiquid. No one's buying it. When you come to sell it back, you might be getting 10% less than the platinum price for it. So I think when the upside potential for gold and silver are just so high at the moment, and given the fact they're liquid assets, why would you want to take that additional risk with the other metals, particularly something like copper, where the returns obviously aren't great?
Yeah, thank you. I had a twofold question. I do apologise. I know others have got their hands up. With respects to coins and value, they have a head on them, a head of state. So if you buy a coin which is, say, non-head of state, how does that affect its long-term value?
They're not legal tender. Anything that hasn't got anything that hasn't got the head of state on, so whether it's Victoria, Edward, George, Elizabeth, Charles, if you've got, say, I don't know, a Krugerrand, for example, that's not going to be legal tender in the UK. Neither is a maple leaf, neither is a buffalo or any one of the other coins out there. So as such, they don't qualify for the tax exemption. So you've got to have legal tender gold coins. In terms of the brand new ones with Charles on, I mean, they're rose gold, they've got a copper alloy in them. Everybody hates Charles. They made a huge amount of them and they're not selling particularly well at all. If you're going for gold coins on the secondary market, you've got complete privacy, whether that's a half sovereign, full sovereign, you've got divisibility and flexibility. But I certainly wouldn't go buying great big large Krugerrands, because if we get a reset in the price of gold, they'd be worth about 15, 20 grand, who knows? Your ability then to cash them in at a competitive price in the future is going to be hindered because you're selling to a much smaller audience of people. No one's going to want to take them off your hands because, number one, they're too expensive. Number two, of course, they're not legal tender, so you're paying tax on them.
Sorry about that. I couldn't unmute. So with respects, if they've still got a weight involved in them, regardless of the, legal tender, and I'm not suggesting at any moment in the time you start smelting them down and returning them to their raw state, but if you end up with a bar, does that not change the dynamics?
No, it's only UK bullion coins. That's it. Nothing else. The bars don't count. You're going to be paying capital gains tax on those. Any other coin throughout any other country, you've got to stick with the legal tender in the UK.
Right. I'll yield to the others for ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. We've got Moo.
Yeah, morning. Hi. I'm more thinking about, you have already gold and silver. I mean, I know it's a bit of a different tangent, but say you are in that you have gold and silver and the system is slowly breaking down and we say we don't want to use the system anymore, we want to use our gold and silver. So are you then completely dependent on the agreements that you make with each other on the value?
I suppose you are, yeah. When you've had crashes in the past, people have been swapping gold regardless of carat, which obviously isn't ideal. But I think it's important that if we don't see a worst case scenario and the whole system doesn't come collapsing down, you've still got something that is pure gold and is legal tender. So yeah, in a very, very worst case scenario, like we saw in Venezuela and Zimbabwe and Argentina, people are swapping even gold rings with each other, anything that they can get their hands on, because there's just there isn't anything there. The only danger with that, though, is you've got something that isn't of the requisite purity, and you go buying gold that's below 22 carat. Well, it's retail gold. You're paying huge amounts of tax and everything else. So it's a very good point to make. And in the past, people have been just relying on each other and just being like, yeah, I'll have that bit of gold, I'll give you that bit of gold. But that situation doesn't last very long until you get an economic reset. So what I suggest, just go for the small divisible coins that you can, and then you've got the best of both worlds, really.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I think it kind of answered Rowena's question. She asked, is there a price difference between gold coins and gold jewelry?
Yeah, massively so. If you're buying gold jewelry, they're making, I mean, 80% markups on it a lot of the time. So if you smelted it down, which obviously a lot of people do with jewelry, it's obviously illegal to do with legal tender coins, and you'd be out your mind to ever do that. But they're making a huge margin on those. So it's not very good to go buy anything that's less than 22 carat for investment grade purposes.
Yeah, it's not pure, I take it as well.
Exactly that.
Okay, we'll go to Elliot. Do you want to ask your question? You've got your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick one. So being self-employed, is there a way that a person can, instead of paying me, kind of pay you guys for gold? Is there?
No, yeah, like I think the lady earlier actually said that. No, sadly not.
No, okay.
Maybe once upon a time, 20 years ago, you might have been able to get away with it. But given all the AML rules, the bureaucracy, they put so much onerous regulation on you. You cannot do anything but take the money from the client and then deliver it to them or vault it for them.
Okay.
They just don't like third-party providers being involved. I mean, you used to be able to pay huge sums of cash for gold. They stopped that a long time ago. Again, that's all about a war on cash. They don't want you having it because they don't have control over it. They want to take that privacy away. And that's just they see that as somebody trying to subvert the system and do something overtly private. And when you can just take gold yourself,
yeah,
or you can get them to deliver it to you without going through a third party like me, what would be the point of going through a third party? They could take delivery of it and then just deliver it to you. They could send it raw mail, special delivery, tracked and signed for, and send a package of 50 grand's worth of gold to you. Probably only cost 40 or 50 quid's worth of postage. So you eliminate the need to go through a third party like me.
And the other question is that I know that with the EV batteries and like solar panels, like you said, they're using a lot of silver. Would you say that because they're using a lot of silver, that might push the price up in like 10 years time or something like that?
I mean, who knows when it's going to break? I don't know. The silver to gold ratio is really wide at the moment.
Cool.
And it's gold's volatile sister. For every 1% increase you get in gold, silver will go up 2.6%, and likewise vice versa. All of a sudden it will just blow up out of nowhere, and then it will come down just as quickly as it went up. So it's being very heavily manipulated. How long they can keep that beach ball underneath the water before it finally pops up is anyone's guess. So really, with silver, you want to be looking at it with a 5 to 10 year time frame, in my opinion. Sure. Yes, there is huge demand coming from the solar panels, the catalytic converters, electronic car batteries, and everything else, and that demand is eventually going to outstrip supply. But it really is anyone's guess when that's going to be. So if you have got the luxury of sitting on it for the long term, you can forget it. Great, get some silver, but don't take delivery of silver in the UK because you have to pay VAT on it. Whereas if you keep it in Switzerland in a bonded vault, you don't have to pay any at all. So you can, because it's not coming into UK jurisdiction, of course, you can keep it there and not pay VAT on it.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're self-employed though, you've got your own business, then you can buy silver for delivery and then you can claim the VAT back.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Right.
Cheers, mate.
I've got a question from Floozy May. She left, unfortunately, but because we're recording it, hopefully she's watching back. Is it possible to visit you and you accept cash? If so, what limit do you accept as cash payment?
No, we couldn't get bank accounts set up with anybody if we were to start dealing with cash. 5 or 10 years ago, you could, but they make it a prerequisite of actually opening up accounts that you don't take any cash anymore. So no, sadly, we can't. no cash at all. You can come and visit us by all means and pick the gold up if you wanted, but just can't pay in cash with it.
All the regulations, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some places you can go to and jewelers, pawn shops and get cash. Yeah, still. The only problem is they're probably not going to give you a very good price for it.
I guess not. Michael, I'm trying to unmute you. There you go. Ask your question.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit slow. I came on late, and so you may probably have answered it. You may have just based simple, direct question. I think you have answered it. I just wanted to know specifically where you could buy. I know some people have replied to the question online here. Where can you buy these coins? Is that directly from yourself then, or is there other places? I know you've talked about reputable. It's easy to
Yeah,
see.
you could. That's it, Michael. You don't have to buy through us. You could go to the Raw Mint, for example. You could go to Bullion by Post. That's another one. But yes, that's all we specialize in doing. I mean, with us, we've got a 10 grand minimum because we're more of a wholesale investment company. We don't deal with the really small trades because once we've delivered them to you and everything else, we've made a loss on it. So we do have a 10 grand cap, whereas if you were to go onto the Raw Mint website, well, yeah, you could buy a couple of coins, 500 quid, £1,000, and have them delivered within about 48 hours. The only issue is with a company like that, it's not very competitive. When they come to sell the gold back, they're buying it back at about 5% below the rate on the day. You're also buying back from civil servants because essentially they're owned by the government. If they wanted to know who's got the gold and they wanted to introduce a wealth tax, that would be the first place they go. Whereas obviously we're a private company. So yes, answer is there are others out there. Gold.co.uk is another. But if you wanted more competitive pricing, buyback guarantee, you wanted to have an advisor here with you too, and that bit more of a bespoke, personalised service with someone that maybe speaks your language and values privacy, come to us. But yes, there are others.
It's just so complicated, isn't it? I mean, it's sorry, one thing. So is it the same thing with the silver that you have to pay tax on it? Or are you better off storing it outside? Or you're saying somewhere else you said you could bury it and just mind you, it doesn't matter if they've already know you got it. So yeah, that's a bit. I'm thinking out loud. I'll rewatch this. Yeah, I know you've
already.
You
can buy silver as well. Absolutely, take delivery of it, or put it in vaults. It's just you have to pay that tax only on silver when you take delivery of it, Michael. If you keep silver in storage, you don't. But then you have to keep it in Switzerland, not London. But on gold, regardless of whether you take delivery or storage, there's no capital gains tax to pay and there's no VAT to pay on it.
Okay. And the irony, of course, is gold. If it's not even the amount of gold that's in circulation that determines, because it's just a measurement of price, isn't it? Like inches. Like if there's too little or too much, you just adjust the amount of coins. If we were to trade in that again, it's just so. As you said, it's a natural thing. It's just such a shame. Anyway, sorry, I'm thinking out loud. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Right. Pleasure.
Nice one.
Thank you, Michael. Leander asked if you could repeat what you said about the no capital gains tax on bullion coins with royal head on it. But I think you covered that.
Yeah, it's basically because they're legal tender in the UK. And there's a caveat of British law, which means you can't tax the flow of currency. So those coins have got a face value. As such, you can't tax them.
Okay, Leander is in Jersey.
So our treasurer, the delight that he is, has decided it's his opinion. There's no legislation. It's his opinion. Richard Summersgill is his name. He's a charmer. He is taxing. I bought mine from Bullion by Post. Sorry, I didn't know about you. We'll come to you next time if I've got a spare 10 grand. They tax it at source. So Bullion by Post take it off and then it gets shipped to Jersey. Yeah. And I was like, hang on a minute. It's money. It's bullion. You can't tax that.
Import duty.
He said, I can do what I want.
Yeah, he classed it as import duty. We've got a lot of clients that want to try and get around that. Best thing you can do is come over here, buy it, fly back there or get a boat back there yourself and maybe stash it underneath the car seat. It's the only way of doing it. We've had that problem with so many clients, but yeah, he considers it an import tax now. Yeah. Levies it on everything else. It's a funny way of getting around it, but You just got to play them at their own game, really. Look, I'm
Oh,
not
but
advocating breaking the law, of course, but
they're turning us into pirates.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's all right.
Thank you, Jeanette.
No worries. Gary. Asking you to unmute. There we go.
Thank you, Jeanette. Just one thing. I know you said earlier, Nicholas, about the crown featured coins and so on. If, and this is hypothetical, and I know sovereigns don't do hypotheticals, but just for argument's sake, there is no longer a monarchy or anything that can put its head onto a crown. Where does that leave us? Because we're only left with the raw state of the material rather than the I'm going to say the head or the face value.
Good question. South Africa is one of the only other countries in the world that affords their residents legal tender, and obviously in the form of the Krugerrand. That's a republic, of course, and they've still got tax-free gold. So it doesn't necessarily depend on the monarchy. It's whether it has a face value in terms of currency. It just so happens we have a constitutional monarchy. It could still be tax-free. It couldn't be. I mean, who knows? But they would have to get rid of our existing legal system. If they were to put a tax on currency transactions, it would create so much uncertainty in the city that nobody would be investing, nobody would be transacting, everyone would be paralyzed by fear, and it would actually have far worse of it'd have such an adversarial effect on our economy. No one would do business with us. Jeremy Corbyn threw the prospect of it out there years ago, but obviously even they dropped it because they realized it would be absolutely ridiculous. Now, the juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze because so little people own gold anyway. What would be the point? It wouldn't make sense. There's nothing to say that one day it couldn't happen. You never know. But just because the monarchy doesn't directly relate to its tax-free status.
Sorry, he got muted again. Gary, you have to stop touching your computer.
Yeah, I'm not very tech-minded, and I do apologise, Janet and everyone else.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally and I will understand that. However, what is on the breadth of everybody's lips is they know a little bit more than what we're alluding to here, and we know that the materials come from the ground, and everything belongs to the people. So its market and its face value is very much dependent on its remittance. Is that a wise thing to start thinking about or not?
In this environment now, no. I mean, if we manage to overthrow the government and form a completely new society, and we wanted to change those rules and make it all tax-free or tax all of it, we could. But until that point, whether that ever comes about, I mean, hopefully one day it does, and we can get rid of the shackles of these people governing us. But in this environment, you've got to protect yourself as you can and buy the right type of product and play the game.
Okay. He got muted again. Fat fingers. Okay. Carl, I sent you a private message. Please have a look at it. I've got the last question for you, unless somebody else puts their hand up. It's from Lawrence from Ireland. He had to go and take a call at 8 o'clock, but he said, since Fort Knox has not been audited since the early 50s, or England Central Bank has not been audited in decades, how do we actually verify the amount of gold or silver in the world?
You can't exactly. It's very, very difficult, and they rely on that being so opaque because that's how they can carry on hoarding it themselves, all the while convincing all of us to buy into the fiat system. And they deliberately haven't audited it for a reason. There's no smoke without fire because it's not there. And then you've got Trump and Musk being, oh, let's audit it. Have they done it? No. Have they released any files in relation to JFK that we didn't know about already? No. Have they actually done anything? No. I mean, it's just about introducing a technocracy over there. Again, another rabbit hole. But I don't actually think they will ever audit it. They can be bombastic in the news and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do the other, but it's all hot air. It's all empty promises. And I think if they did do it, they'd be committing economic suicide,